couple weeks ago, I was coming home from my mom's house, which she lives over at the family home over in the Chesterton Valpo area. And I was coming into Crown Point here. The lights from the Cold Stone Creamery ice cream were just shouting my name. They were blinking. It was almost like they were calling, Father Declan, turn in here. You want ice cream. And before I knew it, I seemed like I was in a parking spot getting out of my car and going in to get ice cream. I kind of say not really knowing what I'm doing, but I was in full control of those decisions. I was reading a couple of years ago about from the psychologist who was talking about the difference between our conscience versus our subconscious, and how much of our conscious versus subconscious it controls our daily life, right? So our subconscious is like our heart's beating, and it just keeps going. We don't have to think about it. Whereas our conscious is I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next. And I was thinking when I was reading, well, maybe it would be, 50-50. Or I was thinking 75% of my life, I'm conscious in what I'm doing and the decisions I'm making. And he made an argument that only 5% of our decisions, our actions, our feelings is conscious. 95% is subconscious, which is not an excuse for not why we do things, but rather it's if we move the needle just 1%, if we just a little bit more. I think that's what this whole weekend's about, is asking the question, knowing why do I do what I do in order to make and organize my life in the way I should? Why do I do what I do in order to be conscious of how I'm going to organize my priorities in my life? And we hear it today in the scriptures, right? This weekend we hear from the 12th chapter of the Gospel of Luke, where Jesus talks about the rich fool, the parable of the rich fool. And he tells this parable, this rich man who had a bountiful harvest. He had a huge harvest. And he says, I'm going to tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And this is the reason why. It says, so that way I can rest, eat, drink, and be merry. So that way I can rest, eat, drink, and be merry. So often in our lives, we do things for the comfort. We do things to be restful, to be merry. But we're not made for that. We're made for so much more. We're made for greatness. And I think right there is the key for us. Jesus is not saying you shouldn't save. You shouldn't put money into your Roth IRA or save for the future or put money aside for those repairs that come. But rather, what is our motivation on why we do it? When we do things in order to be merry, to rest, and all these things that Jesus laid out for the rich fool in the gospel, we feel less than human. I think about just sitting there and scrolling on Instagram, scrolling TikTok, watching TV for hours at a time. We're resting, being merry, not being productive. And by the time we're done, when we take a moment and actually feel again, we don't even feel human. We feel numb. And that's not what the Lord wants for us. The Lord wants us to be active in our decision making. So that way we know why we're making the decisions we're making in order to organize our life in a way to be human again, in order to truly be those disciples. Jesus gives us the reason what we are to go for, and that is to know and love and serve God. And likewise, the second commandment is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. Our whole life, everything should be going towards that. So that way we can be human and follow the Lord.